name is JP Martinello, and I brought in 4 bayonets and a rifle, which I located in the northern part of France, in the Somme region, and British bayonets. And the 4th bayonet is the French one, and a rifle which I believe to be a Lee Enfield rifle.
In a muddy trench in France, a young soldier affixes his bayonet to his rifle, whispers a quick prayer, then heads over the top with his regiment, charging the enemy ranks. He fires into the horde of oncoming Germans and readies himself for bloody combat. Who lives and who dies will depend on who is better with a bayonet. This scene is played out countless times through the First World War, on battlefields like Vimy Ridge, Arras, and Beaumont Hamel. Bayonets were an essential infantry weapon in the First World War. Rifles took time to reload and weren't effective in face-to-face fighting. But the blade at the end of a soldier's barrel was sharp and ready.
Welcome, JP. I see you brought in a few artifacts here.
I brought a rifle and 4 bayonets.
Let's have a look at this one first. This is what you call a Mark I 1907 pattern bayonet. There's a British broad arrow mark there.
Okay.
The arrow, that's
right.
British designation.
Yeah.
This is just a relic of the same model.
Right.
That was originally designed in 1907. And this here is an early version of the 1907 with the hooked quillion. And that was for stacking firearms at the time.
Ah, okay.
They did away with those, and actually one of these bayonets are quite rare.
Oh.
With the quillion on them. They're not, not near as common as the regular ones.
So I think it's a Lee Enfield, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a Lee Enfield. It's what they call a short magazine Lee Enfield, SMLE. Very interesting artifacts, JP. Whereabouts did you find these exactly?
So the rifle was dug up in the property of the mayor of Pozières, because he was building a B&B. While he was digging, he came across 3 of these, and bones from the pelvic area all the way down to including the boots. And he found out that the bones actually belonged to a Canadian soldier. So we presume that this is a Canadian weapon. As a matter of fact, the boots that were found were in such pristine condition that I thought that they came out of the shop or the store the day before.
The rifle, the Enfield Mark III, was quite interesting because of the background where it came from.
The bayonet itself was found along the Regina Trench, which would be just north of Courcelette.
In the spring of the year, they plow the fields. During the winter, it comes up through the frost and everything else. Cautionary point too, there's a lot of unexploded ordnance, and you got to be careful what you pick up. The farmers over there have been trained in minimal training, but training in how to handle ordnance, and they would take it and stack it by the side of the road, and the government would come along and pick it up. It would be detonated in a proper and safe manner. The other thing is now France has determined that all these items belong to France, therefore it's illegal to retrieve them now.
The first place that we visited was a place called Guadacourt, which was one of the 4 areas that the Newfoundland Regiment fought. And there's the memorial, the Caribou Memorial at Guadacourt. That's actually where we started walking through the fields and looking for artifacts.
I've had a chance to visit a lot of those battlefields. It's quite moving when you go there.
And Beaumont Hamel is really one of the 4 main sites where the Newfoundland Regiment fought, and they kept it as it was. It was purchased by the Newfoundland families. It's actually a very nice area to visit.
And it was used by Canadian troops, and that area where that was found was quite likely used by Canadian troops.
Even though it's a relic of World War I, it's something that kind of ties back to what actually happened.
Like holding history in your hands.
It's a piece of history,
yep.
And it's something that I kind of cherish.
Talk about the bayonets and their actual use during battle, and we have one here that's in really nice condition, especially compared to the ones like this here. There's a bit of a change, but now when they use these bayonets for close quarters work.
Correct. Yeah.
When you approach the enemy, then it was a thrust and pull back. One of the things with bayonets, it made it difficult. It made the gun a little bit unwieldy, and it also made it aiming difficult because it would counterbalance it, and it was sometimes hard to be accurate. They were designed for close quarter work, usually in trench warfare, going over the top sort of thing. This groove here is a fuller, what they call a fuller, which is a blood groove. That allows, air and blood to come through to keep it from sticking. So they would cause a nasty wound.
And the fourth bayonet is the French one. It had 4 sharp edges. Could not be used anymore after 1916. I believe it was the Geneva Convention of 1916 that if you get stabbed with it, it becomes very difficult for a surgeon to even try to patch you up.
The fact that where they were found and where you picked them up, puts personal history right to them. And they come out of that battlefield, and having been to those battlefields, I can appreciate the significance of them, the historical significance. Again, you're holding history in your hands.
From Ken's perspective, with the added knowledge of his expertise, telling me which items these were was actually very interesting to find out.
Well, thank you very much, JP, for bringing these very interesting and very wonderful items in. It's been a real pleasure to see them and really, really interesting. A real piece of history there.
Thank you for the feedback. I wasn't sure, and now with your expertise, I know I actually learned a great deal, and I appreciate the feedback that I got this morning from you.
Great, thank you.
Well, if they're into collecting war relics, buy a couple of good books and read up on the actual war. And if you're lucky enough to visit the sites, walk through the fields in late fall or early spring, because that's when you'll find the most stuff on the ground.